barbecue as well. Is this all getting a little bit personal?
You do feel sorry for Newcastle, almost as if their summer couldn't get any more farcical. They're now banning players from what's supposed to be a together team building, nice feeling thing back at the training ground. Their first day back after their tour of Asia, which obviously he wasn't on. It feels like this is only going one way now. It's felt like that for a long time, but things like this just really point it in the direction that he will be moving to Liverpool at some point, regardless of the stance that they didn't want to sell, regardless of where the fee ends up. It all feels like it's going one way, and you can understand why Eddie Howe's done it, I suppose, if he wants to get the squad together and everyone feeling happy and moving in the right direction ahead of the start of the Premier League season. Then Isak being there after everything that's happened is a bit of a distraction, but it is just another story to, for rival fans to poke fun at Newcastle. It has been, objectively, for anyone that's not a Newcastle fan, quite an entertaining summer from the outside, looking in, going for all of these targets and not quite getting there, and having this to and fro on Alexander Isak. So I think, especially for Eddie Howe, managers always like to have things settled before pre-season, ideally, if not before the start of the season. Obviously, the window rumbles on into the start of the Premier League season until the 1st of September. The feeling now is that there's so much noise around Isak every single day that he would really want it to be done, dusted, get him off, get him to Liverpool, and really start moving on, reinvesting that money and building what should be a really exciting season. Newcastle came into this summer off the back of being in the Champions League, winning a trophy, ending that massive drought, that 70-year drought last season, one of the greatest seasons they've had under Eddie Howe last year, and then all of it being pulled away. This should be a really exciting season for them to build, and this summer's just distracting from it, so he will want it over with sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the Alexander Isak story on the back of the Mirror, on the front of the Telegraph sports section as well. Charlotte, the Telegraph talk about this rift deepening between Isak and Newcastle. Just how difficult a position is Eddie Howe in at the moment?
I think, to be fair, he's set his stall out, hasn't he? He said he won't be training with the team until he starts displaying the behaviour that he wants, and that's fair enough. The players made it clear that he wants to leave. Eddie Howe's only going to want players that are in his squad that are fully invested with the project going forward. So it's this awkward standoff. We've seen it at clubs so many years, so many times over the transfer windows, and 9 times out of 10 it normally ends up with the player leaving, because that's the best for both parties. Like Jack said, I think at this point the best thing that could happen is that it gets resolved sooner rather than later. It sounds petty not inviting him to a players' barbecue, but Eddie Howe's working with the group now that he wants to work with going forward. Obviously, they still want to bring players in. It's unfortunate for them that they look like they're set to miss out on another target as well in Sesko. So they're going to want to build this mentality. If they don't bring anyone in, they need to build this mentality going and of strength going into this new season. They don't need people in and around the group who've made it clear that they don't want to be there. So I think Eddie Howe's dealt with it as best as he can, and at this moment in time, that's with Isak training or not training due to this minor injury, alone and separate from the group. So hopefully, for everyone's sake, including ours, so we don't have to keep talking about it every week, it is a deal that is done sooner rather than later.
It's such a huge deal though, isn't it? And we heard our colleague Keith Downey speak earlier, Jack, over whether we could see Isak in a black and white Newcastle shirt at the beginning of the season. The season's of course not far away. Is that a realistic prospect given where we are at the moment?
I really, really don't think so. I think Eddie Howe has made it quite clear, as Charlotte was saying, that whether he wants Isak to stay or not, you'd obviously want a player of that quality in your team. He needs him fully invested, training properly behind what they want to do at Newcastle. And, the events of today, it just feels so far apart in terms of what that level needs to be to where he would be back in the team, back in the fold and starting a game. Charlotte mentioned he's had this knock all the way through, so it's been a bit bizarre. We don't really know how severe that was, whether it was a problem or not, or whether it's all just been down to what's been going on around Liverpool, whether he's even ready for the start of the season, having had that, not been part of their pre-season preparations, didn't play in Scotland, didn't play in Asia, went off to Spain to train with his old club, none of that sounds like ideal preparation for the start of a Premier League season, regardless of the quality of the player. So I'd be absolutely amazed if we saw him in a Newcastle shirt again.
Just going to the Guardian on this story, Charlotte, they talk about the standoff with Newcastle and Alexander Isak escalating. Newcastle have said, we understand, they want a replacement in if they're going to let Isak go. But might they have to shift that stance and let him leave, clear the decks on this particular situation, then move on and try and sign a striker? Could we see that happen now?
At the moment, it seems a standoff for them to maybe get an extra 10, 20, 30 million out of Liverpool, because they know that Liverpool want the player. It's obvious that Isak wants to go there. He's not training. He's not going to be fit for the start of the season. What use is that going to be to Eddie Howe? Can this be resolved? And then you've got a player sitting there who's worth, as an asset, over £100 million, who doesn't want to be at the club. So in that sense, it would make sense to sell him. But then if you look how unfortunate they've been in this transfer window and the targets that they've already missed out on, if they sell him and they don't manage to bring anyone in, that is a big gap in the squad in terms of guaranteed goals. Look how many goals, I think it was 21 last season. You're losing 21 goals. And maybe if he doesn't end up going, that bridges can be rebuilt. It doesn't seem that way at the moment, but stranger things have happened in football. So I can understand why they are holding out, because I think they can get more money out of Liverpool, is clearly what they think, because otherwise they would have accepted that offer that Liverpool bid last week for him. So it just seems to be a waiting game, and maybe if Liverpool up their bid and the player still adamant that he wants to go, then it's going to be an offer they can't refuse, taking over 110 million, because that's what the last bid was, for a player that clearly doesn't want to be there anymore and wants a new challenge. It seems like it would be daft to turn down that sum of money.
And in the meantime, Jack, of course, Eddie Howe has to get his plans in place for the new season. He's working on different deals, and possibly one player he might be interested in. Intriguing move, this, potentially. Aston Villa's John McGinn. What do you make of that?
It'd definitely be an interesting one. I don't think he particularly suits the profile in terms of age that Newcastle would want to be going for. I know they've had some concerns over Ollie Watkins regarding that, him being 30 and towards the end of his career. But John McGinn, clearly an experienced player at Premier League level, robust, someone that's performed consistently in the Premier League and has had that taste of Europe in the Champions League last season. I think Aston Villa fans would be absolutely loath to see him go. I think there might be some other, maybe better options out there in terms of potential.